So let's go ahead and talk about the 5 beginner mistakes that every real estate photographer might encounter when they're starting out. Let's go ahead and get into it. So the first mistake is that we don't focus in on every shot and that we have the incorrect aperture. Now, the correct aperture that I would suggest that we have is anywhere between f7 and about f12. And the reason for that is because we want a lot more in focus than such a narrow focus and have a bokeh. We don't want any of that. And so if we shoot at those apertures, then we should be good with focusing on every shot. I do it just to be safe. Now, if you are within those aperture range, you probably don't have to focus every single shot. You probably focus on one shot like in the middle of the room, and then for every shot is pretty much good. But I would focus on every shot just to make sure. But the main point of this mistake is to have the correct aperture between f7 and f12 so that we can have a lot more in focus than a lot less in focus. So the second mistake that we could run into is that we don't make sure that every single shot or the room of every shot is clean. So the way that happens is we need to make sure that every time we're going to get ready for a shot in a room, that the room is very clean. We want to make sure the bed is made, the pillows are, good, and that there's not a lot of stuff on the side table, or there's no obstruction of anything or clothes or whatever the case may be. We want to make sure that the room looks clean, because it would suck to like forget something and then have to edit in Photoshop, and it's just time consuming when all you can do is just move it out of the way. And it's very important because we always want to make sure that our shots look clean and that they're always like picture ready, and that we don't forget anything, so that we can have good looking images for our clients. So the third mistake that we can run into is that some of our camera settings are wrong, or they're just not set correctly every time we start a shoot. The first thing that we should always look at is that our image quality or image format is set to RAW. Never just JPEG. And the reason for that is because when we want to edit in RAW and not in just JPEG. The second setting that I always like to look at is to make sure that our cards are formatted, our SD memory cards are formatted. Because what would suck is that you start a shoot and you keep shooting, and then you go to another shoot, and then you keep shooting, and then you go to your third shoot, and then next thing you know, you've maxed out your memory card and you can't shoot anymore. And then you got to go back into your camera and you got to start deleting some images and then shoot again and then delete some images. So that's just very annoying. And so I would always make sure that every time you start a shoot, that your card is formatted, or that there's enough space for that shoot for that particular day, because it would suck to just waste time and just have to delete stuff. And anyways, it just saves yourself a headache, and it's just really easy to do just before a shoot to get those things right. The fourth mistake that we have is that we're not really aware of our frames as a beginner. Now, when you're shooting, you always want to make sure that you're aware within your frames. You don't want to make sure that like your frame looks off, or that you're crooked, or that the edge of the room or something like that. Like everything, I'll show you guys an example here, but that is where you want to make sure that you're zoomed out correctly, or that you're just within the frame and that you're not missing anything and it just doesn't look weird. So that's one thing that you could easily forget or mistake as a beginner. You're not really looking for that, but that's just something that we should be looking for in almost every single shot that we do. It's very easy. Just make sure that we're aligned, we're in shape, and you're good to go. The fifth and last mistake that I have, or that I think beginners might run into, is that we don't set our tripod height at the correct height. And the reason for that is because if you set your tripod up too high, and then you have to like angle your camera down a lot, and then your verticals are off, and you don't want that. Or if we set our camera too low, or a tripod too low, then our shots are shooting up and it just doesn't look right, or it just looks like everything is too low. We always want to make sure that we're at like the 3 to maybe 4 foot height radius or range. And it's almost kind of like stomach level of wherever you're at. I know some people are taller and shorter, but I would suggest that a good rule of thumb is to be your camera to set around like your stomach height, just so that it gives like a nice neutral perspective throughout the whole room, and that you can get a nice height and you're not like tilting the camera up or down and like messing up your verticals. So that's another thing to look out for. And those are all my mistakes that I think that most people or most beginning photographers will run into in real estate photography. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like it, give me a comment if you guys have any other questions or suggestions for new videos. I also have more content on my website called apertureuniversity.com. I have more on real estate photography and video as well, as long as some free resources too. And I can't wait to see you guys next video, and thank you guys along for being here with me. Take care.